Hey guys, welcome to the guide. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Curtiss P-36 Hawk, the older brother to one of my personal favorite planes, the P-40 Warhawk, which would come out a couple years later after it. The P-36 Hawk was built in the mid-30s as a stepping stone is pretty much what it became. It was a way to modernize the U.S. Army's Air Force, the Armed Corps, so it could compete with the European Air Forces, like the Luftwaffe of Germany and the RAF of Britain. Its first flight was in May 15th, 1935. And 3 years later, on April 20th, 1938, it went into service in the Army Air Corps. It was built to be an air superiority fighter, which it would be called today. Back then, they were called Pursuit, because their main job was to chase down bombers and shoot them down. So that's what the P stands for, it's just Pursuit. It had a length of 28 feet and a wingspan of 37 feet. The engine in the A model was a Pratt & Whitney 1050 horsepower radial engine, which gave it subpar performance in the eyes of its testers. Its top speed was 313 miles per hour at 8,500 feet. Which, for the time, was respectable, but wasn't the greatest. The Spitfire could go faster at that point, and the German Bf-109 Messerschmitt could go faster at that point. And it had a range of 625 miles per hour. Or miles, not miles per hour. Alright, so that's the boring stuff out of the way. The A models had a laughable armament of one 50 caliber machine gun in the nose and one 30 caliber machine gun in the nose. Kind of shows you the dated ideology of the Army Air Corps. They were still stuck in World War I at the beginning of World War II. Later models such as the C and the G, that would be fixed with two 50 caliber machine guns in the nose shooting through the propeller, and then four 30 calibers mounted in the wings. So, which is needed. And even by the middle of World War II, that really isn't that good of an armament. But, anyways, moving along. Its handling characteristics were exceptional at high speeds. The only problem is it didn't have an engine strong or powerful enough to get it up to those high speeds very easily. So it had to dive to get up to speed and to be able to use its maneuverability like they wanted it to be. But by the beginning of World War II, it was already considered to be underpowered and undergunned, which is why the P-40 replaced it pretty fast. Pretty much as soon as it got into service, the P-40 was like right behind it. And it actually shares the same, or pretty close to the same airframe as the P-40. It has really similar lines. The main difference is the P-40 was powered by a streamlined liquid-cooled engine, while the P-36 had a radial engine, which is rounder and fatter and causes more drag. Its short service career in the U.S. Armed Service was in Pearl Harbor. 5 of them were able to take off and shoot down 2 Japanese Zeros, so that's pretty impressive. But that's about all it did in the hands of U.S. pilots during World War II. It was used by many other countries, though. It pretty much, as soon as the Army Air Corps got their hands on it, they were like, "You can export this, Curtis," and Curtis was like, okay." So one of their major deals they had was Curtis had a deal to export 1,000 P-36s to France. They only were able to get 291 of them over there before Germany invaded and France fell. But in France, they were known as the H-75s. That was kind of the export name that Curtis gave it. 7 out of the 11 French aces actually flew the P-36. So, at the beginning of World War II, it was not that bad of a plane. If 7 out of 11 French aces flew it, I mean, it's not that bad. It scored 230 air-to-air kills with French pilots flying them, and this is against the German Luftwaffe, so, you know, they ain't no noobs in that, since they, you know, they had more experience flying than any other country at that point in war. It's credited with the first Allied air victory / French air victory. One source I read said it's only a French air victory, and the other source said it was out of all the Allies, that it was the first to claim an enemy fighter. On September 20th, 1939, the French pilot André Armand Legrand shot down a German Messerschmitt Bf-109 with it, and he and the plane became the first Frenchman to shoot down another guy, and also quite possibly the first ally to shoot down another. Yeah. And then once France fell, after the Battle of France, the Germans captured the French P-36s and ended up selling them off to Finland, which turned around and used them against the Soviet Union. And the Finns pretty much seemed to like the P-36 a lot, and affectionately called it the Susa, meaning sweetheart. And compared to especially the Soviet fighters early in the war, it was a superb fighter. I mean, Soviet fighters at the beginning of World War II were still stuck in like biplanes, and they had a couple monoplanes, but not really, because Stalin was afraid of flying, so he just took his anger out on the Soviet Air Force and its commanders. It was continuously upgraded, especially its guns, throughout the war, and it was able to hold its own against Soviet fighters throughout all of World War II. The last remaining ones in the finished armed service was retired in August 1948, so that's pretty impressive for a plane that we thought in the United States was kind of not very good. You know, that 2 other countries were able to utilize it and do some serious work with it. That's pretty impressive. Great Britain also got their hands on it, but their assumption on it was pretty much the same as ours in the U.S., was that it wasn't very good, and their home-built Spitfire was better. At least it had better speed. The handling characteristics of the P-36 are really exceptional. And even in this game, because right now I'm actually going up against the Spitfire. But it took forever, because I only got 2 guns. And I just had to keep peppering away at him. It was annoying. That was like, at least in this game, and probably in real life, that's really what annoyed me most about this plane, was just the small guns. The C model had 4 guns, and I think the G had all 6 guns. But this A right here only has 2 guns in the nose, and it's really annoying. In the game, at least, this seems to be alright powered, but this is a pretty arcadey game, so I don't know. Anyways, back to like real life facts over here. The British did end up getting quite a bit of the P-36s. Not because they ordered them or because they really didn't want them. It was just all the P-36s that were destined to France and the Netherlands and Norway all got diverted to Great Britain when the Germans invaded and took over those countries. So the British actually kind of ended up with a lot of them for free. And they ended up sending them to their Pacific theater in like India to fight the Japanese. That's where most of the British P-36s went to. And the British called them the Mohawks because they got to throw their own spin on everything. And then the last major country to get some P-36s was China. And they actually had the right to produce them, but then Japan got too close to their production facility, so they moved their production facility to India, which was controlled by Great Britain, of which Great Britain was like, thank you, come again, and took over production, and all those P-36s that got produced there just got kind of put inside the RAF. Alright, so that's about all the random facts that I could come up with. P-36 Hawk, kind of not known about in the US, but everywhere else in the world it was fairly successful and a big deal. The predecessor to the P-40 Warhawk. Alright, thanks for watching.